Thank you for being here today. My name is Grecia Resendez. I'm a policy analyst with the Center on Juvenile and Criminal Justice. Today we're releasing a really important report that dives into police crime solving rates, which we'll refer to as clearance rates, and police budgets. It's critical to question why we spend tens of billions of dollars every year on a system based on a failed strategy. A strategy that fails 87% of the time for Part 1 offenses and 93% of the time for property offenses. Keep in mind that in 2021, California spent $27 billion on police. $27 billion for a 7% success rate. Now more than ever, we should be meticulous about how we spend our limited tax dollars. As the state faces a huge budget deficit, we cannot afford to continue to pour funds into a failed strategy. We should not only question the effectiveness of the failed systems, but we should invest in proven methods. Invest in methods that give us the public safety we deserve. And with that, I'd like to introduce Mike Males, Senior Research Fellow with the Center on Juvenile and Criminal Justice, and author of the report titled California Law Enforcement Agencies Are Spending More But Solving Fewer Crimes.
Thank you, Gracie, and thank you all for showing up. I appreciate seeing you here. We did this report basically because we were concerned about the raft of misinformation that goes out about crime in California, especially in the national media. You would think this is some kind of dystopia where everybody is being attacked and robbed all the time and so forth. And there are areas where there are certainly crime problems, but we wanted to do this report to clarify some of the issues around crime that are not being discussed. And as Gracie mentioned, one of the biggest problems is the very low and declining rate of offenses being solved by police. And there are a couple of reasons why this is puzzling. One is that we have put more money into police. California's not defunding the police. We have put 50% more money into policing per capita and adjusted for inflation over the last 30 years. So California's funding the police already. The second thing is we've seen a massive decline in crime over the last 30 years, about a 45% decline in crime, but we've seen a 66% decline in arrests. And we're trying to figure out, and we've been trying to get information from law enforcement about why arrests are declining so much, why crimes are not being solved today compared to the past, despite the fact that we have many more officers and many more law enforcement personnel per reported offense today than we had in the past. We have more than twice as many officers per reported crime today than we had 30 years ago. And yet the clearance rate, the crime solving rate has plummeted. It's now down around 13% for all offenses. And in cities like Oakland and San Francisco, it's below 5%. So I don't know how anybody is blaming district attorneys, regardless of what you think of district attorneys' politics in a particular jurisdiction, when they're not even getting these offenses to their desks. So that is really the biggest problem that we have in terms of why, if anyone is complaining that offenders are not being held accountable for their crimes, the biggest reason is not reforms. It's not criminal justice handling. It's not liberal kinds of reforms. It is the fact that police are simply not making arrests. In Oakland, for instance, they have a crime clearance rate of 2% of serious Part 1 violent and property offenses. So this has really been puzzling to us. We've been trying to get answers from law enforcement about why this is, and we have not been able to get good answers. So hopefully this report will provoke some answers. And if any of you have questions about it, please feel free to contact us. We will respond promptly. The final thing I want to say is that California is not soft on crime. In many ways, as a reform group, we would like to see less use of incarceration, less use of arrest, and more community-based solutions. But the fact is that if you look at the statistics, California is not soft on crime. We actually imprison more people per arrest today than we did 30 years ago. We are tougher on crime in terms of incarceration today than we ever have been. And even with the complications introduced by COVID, we have seen increased incarceration in 2022 and increased arrests. So many of the things you're seeing in the national media and sometimes local is they're myths. And we're trying to counter some of those myths, and we appreciate any attention to the information that we're putting out. And like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to contact us. Thank you very much. And I would like to introduce Tanish Hollins, who is Executive Director of Californians for Safety and Justice. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mike. Good morning, everyone. My name is Tanish Hollins. I'm the Executive Director of Californians for Safety and Justice. First, I want to thank Gracia, Mike, the entire CJCJ team for a remarkable job on an outstanding report. This report really makes clear the important truth that we can't continue to just rely on law enforcement for safety in the state of California. I also want to thank Assemblymember Isaac Bryan and Assemblymember Mia Bonta for their leadership on this issue. I want to state a couple of facts, because right now the issue of public safety is the top issue, not just in the state of California, but across the country. We spend tens of billions of dollars every single year on a system that has failed to deliver, on a system that has not done a great job of keeping everyone safe. The clearance rate speaks to that. There's no question that law enforcement plays a role. And as a system where taxpayer dollars are going into, we all have a right to critique whether or not that system is working for us. The report shows that it's not achieving safety that we would like to see for all of our communities. And this isn't a new phenomenon. The CJCJ documents in the report that law enforcement clearance rates didn't start failing this year, they've been failing for decades. What does that mean for our communities? I walk and talk to survivors all over the state of California who have unsolved homicides, who are dealing with the trauma of not knowing whether or not the person who's responsible for their loved one's murder will ever see justice. We have a justice system that has failed to deliver on multiple fronts. The truth is that we have to take a better approach to how we deal with public safety. This report gives us the evidence that we need, but we need to dig a little deeper to understand the why. The truth is that we have to take an approach that's rooted in prevention and intervention to really achieve safety in our communities. When we look at what's happening right now, we're waiting for crime to happen. We have a public health crisis that has fueled a public safety debate in our state. It's because we have over-relied on jail and prison and incarceration to deal with things like houselessness, mental illness, drug addiction, and issues in our community that can be better served by community-based approaches. We see that success every single day. In fact, we saw great outcomes from Proposition 47, which allowed us to reallocate hundreds of millions of dollars into prevention programs over the past decade that have shown to be effective at helping people who are returning from incarceration, to prevent them from recidivating, to help victims of crime who need immediate help, to help people who are struggling with employment get stability that they deserve. That's how we achieve public safety. But if we continue to rely on just one strategy and one system that has already shown to fail, we are going to see the same repeat crisis for the next generation. None of us want to see that right now. We're in a moment right now where many people who agree with criminal justice reform are backpedaling, and they're taking approaches that are going to drive up the state budget, billions of dollars invested into incarceration, create more barriers for people in our community, and leave all of us less safe. California deserves better. We're calling on our leadership, and we're calling on everyone who really has an interest in public safety to do the hard job of doing more, doing better. Not just relying on the knee-jerk responses because everyone is fatigued by the outcome of the pandemic and the challenges that we have on our economy, but make sure that we make investments that are going to increase safety for every community and everybody in the state of California. There's more that we can say about what crime prevention has done in the state of California, especially through Prop 47, which is now being scapegoated as the responsible legislation for the public safety crisis that we have right now. But where are the beds for treatment and mental illness that so many of our unhoused citizens need right now? Where are the access to programs for people who are willing to receive the support that they need? We can't continue to rely on jails and prisons to be the triage center for health issues that our community can address right now if those resources are given to the right partners, if they are given to the right agencies so that we can see better outcomes in our community. People don't like the term prevention. A lot of times it feels like a pie in the sky idea, but it's proven to work. It's proven to work that if we rely on that more, we can see better outcomes so that police can do the job of solving crime, instead of trying to prevent crime, which they've already admitted that they're ill-equipped to do, and this report supports that. The vision of safety that we should all pursue right now is the one that's going to leave all of our communities safer. Let's be smarter about how we do that, especially in the middle of a public health and economic crisis in this state that could be avoided if we make smart decisions right now. I would like to call up our next speaker, a champion on the issue of public safety and criminal justice reform here in California, our partner, Assemblymember Isaac Bryan.
Good morning. It's an important day. It's an important day because facts and evidence and lived experience matter. We have several realities happening in California at the same time. At the same time, many people are experiencing severe and struggling, crippling poverty. We are seeing petty thefts going up. We are seeing property crimes, but we are seeing also crime overall going down. Violent crime near historic lows. We are also seeing historic investments in our carceral system. The state legislature approved over $1 billion for prisons in new funding just last year. We have used our criminal legal system to solve all of our social problems, and it's been failing. The largest mental health provider in the state of California is the LA County Jail, and it has been failing. We know what keeps communities safe. The safest communities are the communities where small businesses are thriving, where housing is affordable, where people have living and thriving wages, where there are limited environmental hazards, where there are walkable grocery stores and pharmacies and community institutions. Those are the safe and thriving communities. And the communities where that doesn't exist, the only civic infrastructure we've invested in is law enforcement. And what CJCJ has shown us today is that in those instances, they still are not keeping communities safe. They're not preventing crime, they're not solving crime. We have to invest in the community infrastructure, in the care and the opportunity that's going to take California the direction where everybody has an opportunity to thrive. And I would push back to the notion that public safety is the #1 issue on people's minds. It's not. If we solve the actual top issues on people's mind, we'd have safer communities, affordable housing, the economy, homelessness. If we provided economic opportunity and the resources for people to thrive and live their lives, we wouldn't see rampant theft. And for everyone who's ever seen a smash and grab video, I promise you, if 10 teenagers walk into a Gucci store and start stealing stuff, it is already a felony. We have the 10th strictest, most restrictive felony threshold in the country. We have Republican states across the nation who have a higher felony threshold in the thousands than we do. In fact, in California, it takes less than $1,000 of theft to be a felony charge where we will spend over $130,000 per year to incarcerate you. Instead of investing that same amount of resources in the kind of prevention that would keep you from feeling like you needed to steal to survive anyway. We have work to do, but we're gonna do that work, and we're gonna do it together. And it's this kind of evidence, it's these kinds of reports, it's these kinds of everyday coalitions of everyday people who care that are gonna make that change. So thank you all for being here. And with that, I want to introduce a good friend. Tom Hoffman is a former police chief from West Sacramento PD and retired director for the California Department of Adult Parole Operations.
Good morning. Thanks again for being here. We really do appreciate it. Based on what's already been said, I'll try to make a contribution maybe others haven't. When we think about the serious crimes such as addiction, fentanyl-related deaths, violent crime, homelessness, and organized retail theft, do any of us honestly believe that addressing 6 nonviolent crimes in Prop 47, blaming the fact that the police are alleging they can't enforce it and there's no accountability, when the data shows us that if there are 100 thefts in our society, 3 end up with a suspect being arrested. 97% of the people who commit those crimes are not arrested. So how is that possibly something that is a priority. It's also interesting to me that after all these years, and I've been involved in this business since 1975 in one form or another, if it's true that the crimes that are listed in Prop 47 are the linchpin enforcement priorities to ensure public safety generally speaking and ensure the reduction of these really violent felony crimes that are listed in this initiative, then we would expect that over many decades, the behavior and policies and practices of our law enforcement partners would demonstrate that it is of their highest priority. I can tell you, and I've as I said, I've been at this since 1975, and in the entirety of my career, nonviolent misdemeanor crimes are of the lowest priority. They are not a priority for response. They are not a priority for investigation. And I don't say that as an indictment of the people who are in this business. Like any business, law enforcement has to prioritize what they do. And so they prioritize, and I think we can all agree upon this at least, they prioritize for violent crime and serious injuries, and they want to keep those resources that are available on the street ready to do that. I think it's also interesting that we should note that folks are saying that, geez, if we could just arrest people and sentence them to long-term in prison or jail, that would deter it. That the fear of a long term that's the kicker. No, it's not. What is a deterrent for criminals is the expectation that they're going to be caught quickly and held accountable quickly. There isn't anybody here that thinks that happens. The whole process is slow and grinding, and results in very few arrests. And remember too, when we talk about arrest or case clearance, that does not include trial, conviction, sentencing, and a term in prison. You add that dimension to this story, and you're going to drive down that 3% to something less than 2%. And so, when we look at what they're claiming is important, their behavior doesn't demonstrate that. When we talk about, okay, well, we're going to make sure they go to jail. These crimes by statute would end up with a term in county jail. Well, we all know the county jail is as overcrowded as anybody else, and we know, and our own sheriff here in Sacramento County freely admits this, they do not allow, as a general statement, non-violent misdemeanor offenders to be booked in their facilities, nor do they allow people with warrants for those offenses to be booked into their facilities. And they know that, we all know that if you are sentenced to a term and actually are in county jail, you're going to serve a fraction of your time. And I don't say that to be disrespectful, it's just the truth. So how can that make any sense? On one hand, we've solved 3 out of 100. On the other hand, we're saying that we want to have long terms in jail or prison. We know that's not operationally achievable either. And they admit that. It's one of the reasons in Sacramento County right now we've got over 30,000 arrest warrants for violations of the crimes involved in Prop 47. And they're not going to get arrested. The last point I'd want to make is, let's not forget that Prop 47 and AB 109, two of the most, I think, noteworthy criminal justice reforms in our state's history, both of them have guaranteed, constitutionally guaranteed funding streams for law enforcement. Do you know that in 2022, the distribution just for AB 109, it goes to all 58 counties, $2.2 billion in 1 year. It gets divided up based on how many folks you're supervising, so LA gets a lot more money than, let's say, Shasta, but everybody gets it, everybody. And they've gotten that money for 12 years. Well, what's that money supposed to be used for? In no small part, the agenda is improve the number of non-custodial interventions and care in our communities. That infrastructure that we need to scale to make all of this a reality for all of us. We voted for it. What's happened? Does anybody in this audience believe that today, after 12 years of billions of dollars pouring into our counties, that there's more services available now than before? Well, no. I know this from personal experience. When I was the parole director, I had, and it's just shocked me how much money we had. I had literally millions to give cities and counties all over our state for services for predominantly parolees, but of all kinds, mental health, homelessness, drug and alcohol addiction, halfway houses, you name it. And I would go, and my staff would go literally county to county, city to city, and offer to give them that money and help them bring those services up to speed and supervise them. Well, those services are private vendors. They need a use permit to provide that service in their towns. That permit is approved by a council-appointed planning commission. Go ahead and make that presentation to a planning commission, and right behind you, if not before you, you have a police chief, a sheriff, or a DA say you shouldn't do that. We shouldn't allow a use permit because you don't want those folks in town that will release a tsunami of crime. Also untrue, but it just cannot be understated how the constant and immediate, I'll say, refusal of law enforcement to embrace the will of the people as it relates to pursuing something that, other than an agenda that says I'm going to arrest people and incarcerate them, cannot be understated. Police chiefs, sheriffs, and DAs are extremely politically powerful, and they influence local governments. And so I really truly believe this, that after more than a decade of all of this, what we really need now are police leaders and other leaders in our culture to recognize thoughtfully, unemotionally, without a fear-based boogeyman approach, that all the evidence in the world suggests we need balance in our criminal justice system. The cops play a valuable role, an important role, a respected role, but they are not the entire solution. And if we think that we're going to continue to react to crime after it occurs and that's the solution, we're kidding ourselves. And we all know that. Thank you.
Good morning. My name's Diane Goldstein. I'm a retired lieutenant from Redondo Beach Police Department in Southern California, having spent a career in policing and currently the executive director of the Law Enforcement Action Partnership. Law enforcement professionals in the United States and across the globe have recognized we can no longer rely on arrest as a means to address the substance use disorder epidemic. Saving lives and reducing the crime and disorder caused by underlying problematic drug use are not mutually exclusive. A response that can achieve both ends requires a paradigm shift towards evidence-based practices that closely link public health and policing strategies with their most important outcomes, reducing the morbidity and mortality associated with drug use and addiction-related behaviors that range from crime to mental illness and homelessness. As I've repeatedly said through my 13-year reform history, we cannot rely on police to address public drug use and substance use disorder. We will not solve the current overdose crisis. I speak from real experience. Working in narcotics and gang units showed me that criminalizing drug use does not stop fentanyl and opioids and other drugs from flowing into our communities and killing our loved ones. But I also speak from personal loss as a sibling. I understand the loss of so many because my brother died from a polydrug overdose in 2007. I've written about his death and why I know recriminalization will not save lives. Efforts to recriminalize drug use completely ignore the root cause of the problem, lack of affordable housing and other socioeconomic issues. Soaring homelessness has increased public drug use, not the other way around. If drugs are recriminalized, it is police officers who will be responsible for jailing the homeless to temporarily remove them from public view. We are already overstretched. More police isn't the answer. Interdisciplinary teams with wraparound services that include housing, mental and physical health, job training, and drug treatment on demand are needed. Harm reduction services that include overdose prevention centers work, and their efficacy cannot be ignored, including the life-saving success of the 120 venues operating safely in Canada, Australia, and 10 European countries. Arrest puts people struggling with addiction into a never-ending revolving door of arrest and incarceration. Once they've completed their sentence, usually without receiving effective treatment or any treatment at all, they'll be right back on our street, only now with a criminal record and a higher overdose risk. Research shows that prohibition has limited, if any, deterrence value. One study showed recidivism rates for drug offenders at 76.9% within 5 years of release. Another found 66.7% were rearrested within 3 years. Many more indicate that an emphasis on prosecution does not stop drug use, manufacturing, or sales. If the intent of our drug control strategies are to save lives, we know through research that drug market disruption through enforcement leads to fatal overdose and makes the epidemic worse. Law enforcement is simply neither equipped nor qualified to address the complex needs of people who are both unhoused and have substance use disorder. Policymakers can't keep relying on us to put a Band-Aid on the problem that they have caused unintentionally. It's unsustainable and ineffective. Instead, we need to take a shared approach to the safety and well-being of our communities. We all desire and deserve safe communities that rely on law enforcement to effectively respond when crime occurs, while also prioritizing prevention that actually addresses the root causes of the challenges we face. And with that, I'd like to introduce Linnell Laws with the Ahmad Institute out of Watts, California.
Good morning. My name is Linnell Laws, and I currently work at the Ahmad Institute. Ahmad stands for Arming Minorities Against Addiction and Disease. It's also a Swahili word for support, which is what all underserved communities need. Today I come before you as a licensed marriage and family therapist, a mother, a minority, a community member, and someone directly impacted by the criminal justice system. Within my layers also lies passion, fear, and concern. We are in a time where change can occur, but only if we allow it. Over the years, statistics have shown that there has to be flexibility and innovation when dealing with community. The Department of Justice acknowledged this by spearheading the Police Mental Health Collaboration Toolkit. It speaks to the importance of lived experience and how that can bridge the gap and bring about change talk in individuals struggling with their recovery. The program I currently work on is called Project Impact. This program is funded by the City of Los Angeles Mayor's Office with savings from Prop 47. This program provides free behavioral health support, free legal services, peer support, housing, and access to employment. These are all significant things, but what people don't see is that we also provide a human experience. We as individuals have a need to feel like we're a part of something, and Impact gives fellows the ability to connect with someone who talks their language. We are here today because there's a discussion about where funding can be beneficial. We're here today because there are questions about what success looks like and what support should surround it. If you want proof that these programs work, then just look at the person who's speaking in front of you today. I'm proof that chances make for better choices. From February 2020 through December 2022, Project Impact served hundreds of fellows, almost all of whom were enrolled in therapy services, gained full-time employment, and/or were sent to vocational training. All of these services were provided by individuals formerly incarcerated or directly impacted by the criminal justice system. I've seen parents reunify with their children. I've seen men gain their confidence, and I've helped individuals that others believed were unreachable. We must prioritize our investments for programs that help nurture the whole person. Let's take away the power dynamic that prevents success, help reduce recidivism, and increase self-reliance. Why continue to ignore what works when the experts have shown us what's possible? And I'll now pass it along to Sean Huff from Shields for Families in Linwood, California.
Good morning. My name is Sean Huff. I am the Vocational Services Administrator with Shields for Families, a nonprofit that has been serving South Los Angeles since 1991. In 2014, the California voters overwhelmingly decided that we would stop wasting money in our state prison systems and begin to invest in our communities. Since that time, we have invested approximately $80 million into programs in communities across California to increase services available to survivors, significantly reducing recidivism rates, reduce the homeless rates, increase access to mental health, increase access to substance abuse treatment programs, and increase employment opportunities for vulnerable community members. In fact, what we know that is since its inception, more than 70,000 Californians have received treatment through programs funded by Prop 47 generated public safety investments. This program has reduced homelessness among participants by 64%. These investments have reduced unemployment by 32% and increased full-time employment by 180%. These public safety investments have also funded programs that focus on reducing crime, and they now report a recidivism rate of 12%, which is 76% below the state averages. Our Shields for Families program is among those programs. I'm proud to say that in the last 6 years, we have served over 1,600 men and women returning to their communities. Men and women who did not know that access to health services was available in their community. Men and women like Samaje Newton, who walked through the program determined not to go back, determined to find a way, and through the Shields program, which is funded by Prop 47, was getting access. Samaje is now a staff at our program. Women like Gloria Valle, who did not know how she would be reunited with her children, did not know that services were available that could support her and walk her through the program with love and acceptance and not with the threat of returning to prison. Gloria is now reunited with her children, and Gloria is also a staff member at Shields for Families. Men like myself, Sean Huff, who walked through the program not knowing what the future held, who walked through the program looking for an opportunity to address the root causes of the issues that he was facing and not have the threat of being returned to prison. I am now the Vocational Service Administrator, the Director of the Vocational Services. As has just been said, we are examples of what happens when we, as Californians, continue to invest in public safety for all. So as I conclude, I leave you with this. The question should not be, what must we change? Nor should the question be, should we return back to failed policies that we know have proven to destroy our most vulnerable communities? Instead, I think the question should be, are we willing to stay the course and continue to scale up and invest in proven public safety efforts that address the root causes of crime, that lead to safety and well-being for all, and that continue to prove to men like myself, men like Samaje Newton, women like Gloria Valle, and the 70,000 across the state who have received service, and the 8 million who are eligible, that yes, we as a community care about you. You are more than a number, but you are a member of our community, and we will continue to invest in you and your safety. Thank you. I would now like to invite George Villa of Milkwood, which is in Salinas, California.
Hello everyone, my name is George Villa. I am the Policy and Programs Manager for MIPA, Motivated Interconnected Leadership for Public Advancement. We are located in Salinas, Watsonville, and also in Yolo and Solano County. I'm happy to be here today to represent the voices of those that couldn't be here and wanted to be here, those that have been impacted by the system. I'm here to talk about some of the success rates we have in Monterey County on specific Prop 47 initiative. As a response to the historic unmet needs for substance abuse and low-level offenders, non-violent offenders, our coalition in Monterey County, called the No Zip Code Left Behind, Addressing Inequities Through Collaborative Partnerships, Proposition 47, was designed to address not only the punitive practices for non-violent offenders, but to implement culturally and linguistically competent services based on evidence of healing and trauma-informed approach through La Cultura Cura, which means translate to culture cures. 71% of our grant funding goes to our community partners, where we're strategizing and analyzing what's the best approach. Many of us, like myself, have lived experience, which we know is the secret sauce to success. We're also offering employment and housing services under a case management, so we're no longer focusing on silos, but building bridges with the people through a collaborative approach. A physical infrastructure and agreement with law enforcement to have a sobering center that offers jail diversion for people that get arrested for drug offenses or drinking under the influence. We also offer a post-conviction relief service provided by the local public defender's office, who has been doing a phenomenal job in Monterey County. Before I end, I want to share some of the significant impact and outcomes achieved so far in Monterey County. One of our proposed outcome measures was to reduce the 2-year recidivism rate from current baseline of 38% to 28%. We were able to receive a recidivism based on rest post-enrollment period was 21%. Recidivism based on conviction with 2 years enrollment was 8%. Another success that we had, we wanted to divert 100 individuals from jail by operating a sobering center. We accomplished a total of 76 clients who received services at the sobering center instead of being booked at the Monterey County Jail, where we know there's no success rate there. Third, 60% of individuals, we wanted to complete the treatment program. We were successful at accomplishing, at the time of analysis, 81% of clients all received case management, completed at least one services. And this is why it's so important to be able to invest in community-based organizations which have made a much more success rate than putting someone in jail. That is all today. Thank you very much for your time. I'd like to pass the microphone to Lanesha Edwards. She's from the Crime Survivors for Safety and Justice. Thank you. Oh, come on.
Good morning. I am proud to stand here today with this distinguished group of community leaders who are dedicated to protecting safety and well-being for every Californian. As a survivor of crime, what I want more than anything is to prevent what happened to me and my family from happening to anyone else. Thanks to reforms like Prop 47, we have saved tens of millions of dollars that have gone into creating trauma recovery centers up and down the state of California that are helping survivors of crime get the support they need to heal. These trauma recovery centers are healing communities and playing important roles in preventing crime and harm before they occur. Prior to the passage of Prop 47, there was only one trauma recovery center in the state of California. Today, thanks to Prop 47 savings, there are more than 24 of them, healing survivors and communities all across California. The expansion of trauma recovery centers has helped make sure that more survivors get access to the support they need, especially survivors from communities most impacted by crime and violence, but which are the least helped. Too often, survivors from those communities face the biggest barriers and hurdles to accessing services. But Prop 47 has helped change that. We cannot return to the days of investing all of our resources in mass incarceration while starving the programs that provide safety and healing to survivors. Turning back on criminal justice reforms now would only abandon our community and thus make us less safe. I urge our political leaders to focus on real solutions to the challenges that we face and actually address the root causes and help prevent crime and harm from happening in the first place. Thank you. I would love to introduce Assembly Member Mia Bonta.
Good morning, everyone. I'm State Assembly Member Mia Bonta, and I have the honor of representing the beautiful people of Oakland, Alameda, and Emeryville in Assembly District 18. I'm honored today to stand with you in community with you every single day. As many of you know, I am a member of the Select Committee on Retail Theft. We just had a hearing this past week. Being in those hearings and listening to the rhetoric this past year, it's clear that I have a very different understanding of how we make our community safer. Many folks around the Capitol are talking and walking a walk that I just cannot abide to, which is a lock them up and throw away the key approach. That's a solution that has failed, and it is not the way that we solve issues related to retail theft, property crime, or theft more broadly, and that is not justice. We've tried that model for years and it didn't work. In fact, what that approach showed us is exactly what we should be focusing on now, which is relying on arrests and incarcerations alone, is not an effective public safety strategy. We have invested in all and will continue to invest in law enforcement. California spent more than $25 billion on police in 2021. Real spending per capita on law enforcement went from $371 in 1985 to $638 in 2021, an increase of 72%. In Alameda County, where I represent, residents pay $577 more per capita for policing than they did in 2003. Yet, despite this investment, in 2022, the statewide clearance rate for property crime hit an all-time low of just 7.2%. That means nearly 93% of all reported property crimes in California that year went unsolved. Let me say that again. 93% of all reported property crimes in California went unsolved. By comparison, since 2015, Prop 47 has saved $800 million from reduced prison incarceration. Don't get me wrong, law enforcement is a key part of keeping us safe, but so is investing, not divesting in our communities. The path to public safety requires that our community members have what they need to thrive. We need public progress around providing people with their basic needs: healthcare, education, housing, and opportunities to be able to connect in meaningful ways. We need to ensure that we are focusing on trauma-informed care, on harm reduction, on the strategies that we know actually lead to greater and safer communities. Instead of spending $14.6 billion on a broken carceral system, we should be focusing on providing people exiting incarceration with the resources they need to be our good neighbors, to come back to their mothers, their fathers, as brothers, sons, and sisters. We should be focusing on connecting them to jobs and housing and giving them the ability to create a path forward for themselves and their families. We should be focusing on reconnecting families, not continuing to break families. This is how we make our community safer, by investing in everyday basic needs, by investing in the solutions that address poverty, and by investing in people who, when they commit harm, have the ability to right their wrongs for their community. So today, I stand in solidarity with the right solutions, the solutions that will actually lead to decarceration, to safer communities, and to more thriving populace in my district and throughout the state of California.
And this concludes the press conference. Thank you.